Ben Markus is a reporter with Colorado Public Radio, and his new investigation details the incredible reach of three specific lobbying firms within Denver Mayor Michael Hancock's administration. I was struck by one line in your reporting in particular. It was sometimes difficult to know where the city ends and the lobbyists begin. What do you mean?
So in the course of the reporting, I think we always knew that lobbyists would have close connections to the city. There's a lot of money to spend in the city. It's a strong mayor system, and they're going to focus their lobbying efforts on a few key people within the city. Everybody knows there are lobbyists. I think what surprised us is that lobbyists work for the city in some cases, right? So they have contracts directly with the city. What surprised us in some cases is that lobbyists are very close personal friends with the mayor. And we were able to determine that because we got his calendars, and when you type in the names of some of these lobbyists, it's drinks, it's birthday bashes, private parties. And so that did surprise us that it's not just that lobbyists are operating within City Hall. We all know that. I think it's some of the closeness that surprised us and surprised experts in ethics and public policy.
When you talk about lobbyists being paid by the city, that's something that might catch people's ear. We're talking about lobbyists that are representing clients on one hand while working for the city, getting a paycheck from the city for another project.
Right. So what we wanted to do was quantify how big these lobbyists are. And Denver's one of the few cities, maybe the only city in Colorado, that requires lobbyist disclosures. So we went through and added up all their clients. And these three big lobbyists, they represent about $1 billion in city work since Hancock has become mayor. But what we noticed in those lobbyist disclosures is that they list the city itself as a client. So not only does it say Mortensen or Kiewit or Oakwood Homes, but it says Arts and Venues, or it says DIA. And so that, I had never seen anything quite like that before. So we asked the question, like, how is it that a lobbyist can also have a contract with the city while they're also lobbying the city? Now, what lobbyists will tell you is that if they're very close to a project their clients are interested in, the city will have them sign a non-disclosure agreement so that their big client can't have a leg up in bidding. Or they'll make sure that the work of their clients doesn't overlap with the work of the city. And they have their own internal controls for that, but the city is also keeping track of that. It still surprised us, though. I'd never quite seen anything like that before.
When you say internal controls, is that a fancy way of saying the honor system?
Yeah, so Maria Garcia Berry is one of the lobbyists we interviewed. She works at CRL, she runs CRL Associates. She's been around for a very long time. You don't last 39, 40 years in the city by being shady, I think. And she said, look, if things don't feel right to us, we're not going to do it.
I think a lot of reporting on lobbying in politics focuses on specific instances where a lobbyist or a politician or both break the rules. And what makes your investigation so interesting to me is here is a system where everybody appears to be playing by the rules. So how do we feel about this now?
Sure. That's a tough question.
And maybe it's not a question for you. Maybe it's a question for the public. I mean, did you set out trying to find somebody doing wrong or simply to explain the system?
No, so we actually got a tip in the mail that we wanted to look into the people who travel with Hancock. So he travels a lot internationally to boost the city, to try to get direct flights for Denver International Airport. And there are studies to show that direct flights have a big impact economically on the city. But we got a tip in the mail that said, look at the people who fly with him. And the delegation list is people you would expect, tourism officials, universities, they want to have foreign students. But what jumped out at us is that the lobbyists, municipal lobbyists, were also flying. And so we didn't think there was anything corrupt. We just thought that was an interesting connection, and so let's take all the documents and data that we can collect from the city and try to quantify their relationship with the mayor and how big they are. So we didn't set it out to find any corruption. We found no corruption. I will say that we asked for text messages between the mayor's office and these lobbyists, and they refused to provide them. Our attorneys think that that is a public record and should be made public, but it wasn't. So we can't say definitively, but based on everything that we've seen, this is all perfectly legal.
So when you raise the issue of the lobbyists flying with the mayor overseas to represent Denver, how do you even begin to parse out, are they there representing their clients in those international locales, or are they just on a small metal tube with the mayor?
So it's a good question. So we asked the lobbyists, and they said this isn't great lobbying opportunity. There's just so much going on. They have a very planned itinerary when they get to Tokyo or Dubai. But it's hard to imagine that it isn't okay lobbying opportunity to be sitting business class with the mayor, with top airport staff, with key members of city council, and oftentimes their clients are in the same cabin, right? So CRL Associates represents Kiewit, and CRL and Kiewit are both in the cabin with the mayor. And so it's hard to tell exactly if it's a lobbying opportunity. The city told us in some cases lobbyists are invited because they do have interests in those cities. The Packner Group went to Munich, and they said that that lobbyist was invited because of his German heritage. But when we asked that lobbyist, he says because we were doing city work. And we're economic boosters for the city. So sometimes there were conflicting explanations as to why lobbyists were invited at all.
Fun fact, I am also of German heritage, did not get invited. So I feel like when I read your report, it was almost as if the mayor and his powerful lobbyist friends were kind of shrugging in their comments to you like, well, yeah, of course this is how it works.
Yeah, that was interesting. I tried to put something in the story where I had a bunch of voices telling me it wasn't news, because it struck me in many of the interviews I did that Ben, this isn't news. Ben, this is the way it's always been done. Ben, it's not a news flash that lobbyists are cozy with politicians. And yeah, maybe that's true, but I think for the first time we've been able to really show the full scope and extent and how actually small some of these circles are in Denver. And it's important because Denver has billions of dollars in projects that are going on, from the National Western Stock Show to the remodel of the interior of DIA to the billions of dollars in bond and other spending that's going on in the city. One city councilor told me it's probably more projects going on now than at any time in the city's history. And so I think understanding lobbyists and how they influence elected officials is very important right now.
And finally, did your reporting give you any insight into how a future mayor or the voters of Denver could take apart this cozy system between the mayor and his lobbyists if they wanted to?
I think that Denver actually deserves some high marks for requiring lobbyists to disclose their clients at all. That allows this reporting to happen in the first place. And Mayor Michael Hancock has been a proponent of data, so we were able to look at the checkbook that Denver, every single payment the city makes goes into a database, so we could cross-check that with the clients. So in some ways, the city does more than almost any other city in terms of transparency. I don't know. That's up for people. That's up to ethics experts and public policy experts to determine what they feel comfortable with. If
you look at the parallels to D.C., it would seem that one place where a different-minded leader or a civic organization could make a suggestion would be the revolving door. The folks who come in, work for city government, go out, lobby, come back, that kind of thing. So there are revolving door rules in the ethics, in the code. So it does limit some of what you can work on if you were to go from back and forth. But CRL Associates is a good example. A lot of the people that they hire have worked in city council or in the mayor's office. The mayor's deputy mayor at one point, Happy Haynes, worked for CRL for 4 years. So maybe they follow the rules, but there's still a lot of back and forth. And that's in part because if lobbyists are doing city business, why would they not hire people who worked in city government, who have that expertise? Makes a lot of sense. All right, Ben Markus, fantastic reporting. Appreciate your work as always. Appreciate CPR News as well. And look forward to any follow-ups that come. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the show, so thanks for having me on again. Thank you.
Subscribe to the Next YouTube channel for the best of Next and some other stuff.